This is Jim Fetzer, your host on The Real Deal, with my very special guest today, a distinguished scholar, a leading international Islamic philosopher and author who specializes in world politics, economy, eschatology, modern socioeconomic and political issues, and is an expert on international affairs. He is the best-selling author of Jerusalem in the Quran. His name, Imran Nazar Hussain. I am so pleased to have you here on The Real Deal today.
Thank you, Jim, for your kind invitation.
I'm especially interested in your reflections on what's been taking place in the Middle East. It has been in part described as an Arab Spring, as popular uprisings against dictators, as in the case of Egypt. But when we turn to Libya, something completely different appears to be taking place, where NATO, which was originally created as a collective defensive alliance against the possible invasion of Europe by the then Soviet Union, has been turned into an instrument of aggression against a regime that, so far as I can tell, was extremely benevolent toward its people. Could you contrast the cases of Egypt and Libya and other aspects of what's taking place in the Middle East today?
Well, as Muslims, we normally begin with a statement in Arabic, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We begin in Allah's blessed name. NATO is now showing itself to be a Zionist organization, and it is fulfilling Zionist interests, pursuing Zionist goals. That is becoming very clear now. The Arab Spring germinated from seeds that were planted long, long ago. And the best way for us to look at the subject is from a historical perspective. History is not moving randomly, aimlessly towards nowhere. History is moving towards a particular goal, and we must be able to read history and to understand the direction of movement of history and the end to which it is moving. And the study of the Middle East will begin way back with the Crusades. Why did the European Christian people have an obsession with liberating the Holy Land? And no other Christian people had that obsession. And they pursued that obsession for 1,000 years, until eventually we're now having an Arab Spring which will bring to power so-called Islamic governments, with the appearance that Islam is re-emerging now as a force in the politics of the region. And the Muslims are going to be feeling very nice about winning elections in, they've just done in Tunisia. The Islamic Party has just come out with the largest number of votes in Tunisia. And we can close our eyes and know that this is the same thing is going to happen in Egypt next month, and then the rest of the Arab world. And Libya is now celebrating, because in Libya they're proclaiming themselves to be the party of Islam. So there is one common thread between them all, even though there are differences. That in some cases it's a peaceful uprising, whereas in other cases they need some help, so it becomes a violent insurrection. But there is a common trend, Jim, and the common trend is that Islam appears to be re-emerging in the region as a political force. And I am of the opinion that this is not happening by accident. This is meant to facilitate the achievement of the ultimate Zionist agenda.
It is meant to facilitate the achievement of the ultimate Zionist agenda. You are suggesting that Zionist interests underlie a lot of these events, and therefore I would infer that they are not bona fide indigenous movements. Perhaps you could elaborate so that I do not misunderstand your interpretation of what's taking place.
There is a combination, Jim, of internal factors and external. If you stop the rain from falling, eventually the land will become parched, and with just one little matchstick you can start a fire that will burn down thousands and thousands of acres. So what the Zionists did, using the International Monetary Fund, for example, as one of their primary instruments, is to bring about a state of collapse of the economies in these countries, and impoverishment of the people, which is not by accident, but by design. And not only do you have this economic poverty and destitution and intense suffering because you are attacked economically and through monetary policies, but in addition to that, the Zionists propped up dictators who were savage against their own people. Hosni Mubarak was viciously savage in the way he treated the Egyptian people. They hated him. And so these people are suffering from both political and economic oppression. And they're longing for a day when the sun would shine. And the same people who inflicted the oppression upon them are the same ones who come along now and say, we can give you deliverance from oppression. The reason why they're doing it now, Jim, is so that they can claim tomorrow, in fact, tomorrow has already arrived in some places, that Islam now constitutes a threat, not only to Israel, but to the world. And since you've had more than 10 years of intense war on Islam in the media, and the people have been fed up to their throats with how evil Islam is, when you are now able to convince mankind that Islam now poses a threat not only to Israel but to the peace of the world because of the rising tide of Islam in the Middle East, it would now provide Israel and provide the Zionist NATO organization with what we may call casus bellum, a justification for launching great wars against the Arabs, which will decimate the Arabs. Our Prophet, Allah's blessings be upon him, prophesied that this would happen 1400 years ago.
So it is your belief that this is a temporary stage, that the emergence of Islamic rulers in these states is, in a way, setting things up for both the demonization of Islam, but also for future attacks upon those states that are under theocratic governments that are dedicated to Islam, where, and this is in a secondary but very broad question, it has seemed to me that of the three Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, that Islam has the greatest claim to be a peaceable religion that has the least reason to be aggressive or to despair others who hold different beliefs, much less to take aggressive actions against other nations.